to take some time before we go today to talk about the year that's passed. This is going to be the last time that the three of us are going to be getting together to chat this year. So how about we take a quick look back at the big stories of 2014. Ernest, I want to start with you. What's the story that will stick with you from this year?
Well, I think two stories that will stick with me. One is definitely Ferguson and what's come out of that in Eric Garner. I think that's going to go on into 2015 and even beyond, because we're starting to have that conversation that we've been talking about we need to have for a generation now, which is the conversation of race. And it's been a tumultuous and sometimes violent and nasty conversation, but it's going to happen. And it's being led from a grassroots movement, which is something that needed to happen. It couldn't have happened from where it was trying to begin with the President's Council and all of those things. So I think that's one story. The other one is Ebola. I mean, that was a story that we talked about it for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Every time I would say to Ernest, we're going to talk about Ebola, I would kind of put my hand over my head and try to protect myself a little bit, because I knew it wasn't going to be his favorite thing to talk about.
It was a huge story, and I think it was one of the missed marks for the news media, because we should have been out front on that one. And I'm talking about not just the United States, I'm talking about worldwide. We should have been out front on that, and we weren't. And even today, it's still getting lost, because that story is still there and it's still happening, and we're really not doing what we need to do in terms of covering that.
So I'm going to stipulate those two and add one more that we could talk about, and then tell you what I'm really interested in. So I think violence against women is another big topic. And you look from Ray Rice, the UVA case, Sasha Menukori case here on campus, George Will saying that women who've raped on campus have coveted status. There's all kinds of examples of that one. I'm going to pick one that maybe is a little less obvious. It was a big story. It was the Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. And I'll tell you why I picked it as the story of the year. It was a classic story. Doesn't matter what medium you're talking about, how could all these people disappear in a day and age with satellites and the internet and all that stuff?
100 years ago, maybe you could understand
It's a huge story regardless, but it also showcases both the strengths and the weaknesses of the media all at the same time. So no matter what tools we had at our disposal, we haven't solved this mystery. What we did instead was show some of our worst.
You're absolutely right about that.
Let's put you in let's all the rumors and the gossip, and let's put you in the simulator, and let's spend all of our time talking about this story to the absence of any other thing.
I mean, you would have to say that story brought CNN back from the dead. It really did.
And now we haven't heard about it for how long?
It's been what?
A good 5 months? Yeah.
But it just encapsulates everything good and bad about the media in 2014 in one story.
Okay. There's one thing, as we were kind of discussing prior to today's show taping about what we were going to bring to the table. One of the things I thought about that we spent a lot of time this year talking about how our content gets delivered, and looking and talking about Aereo and how that was going to be the next big thing, these micro antennae, and then the Supreme Court saying that it was actually an illegal transmission, and then that company now going bankrupt. And the idea of alternative delivery methods, HBO, kind of unlocking HBO Go so that you don't need to have the cable subscription anymore. So I know that's also, in my mind, in addition to Ferguson and the violence against women in Malaysia 370, you can't look back without also thinking about what's to come. And today there was a big story that we're waiting still to see how it's going to play out. And I think 2015 could be the year that we're going to spend a whole lot of time talking about Cuba.
Yeah, the president announcing this morning that we're going to have formal diplomatic relations, open up an embassy to go to Cuba. So now people won't have to figure out other ways to get to Cuba. They can just hop on a plane or hop on a boat and go straight there from Florida. And it puts Florida in play right now in terms of the 2016 election. I mean, it just changes the whole dynamic.
One thing that interests me, there's some stories we can predict, right? We know there's going to be the Bush-Clinton, story again for next year. We know there's going to be more celebrity gossip and more hacking stories and all that stuff. Here's one I'm interested to see if it will happen or not. Is there going to be a wholesale attitude change regarding sort of income inequality and how we report on that? The way there's been a wholesale attitude change about marriage equality, or for that matter, marijuana legalization. Is that the next big trend in public attitudes? I don't know. Maybe it will be.
I would hope so, because we've talked about it several times here about what's going to be one of those generational stories, and I think income inequality, along with that larger conversation on race in this country, I think that's going to be a continuing story next year.